There are two previous parts of this lecture. This is part 3.
Just a reminder, last time I've introduced you to this framework of levels of thinking from a QAL model made by Ken Wilber, and I have a reference here. So we've been looking at them different levels, and the central question of the last lecture was if it would be possible for the data science and data work to take ourselves and our communities up these levels of thinking. At the moment, we have a tendency that we don't recognize any levels. That's what level 6 does. And that just makes you go down. And remember that these levels, they have been invented to solve problems of the previous levels. And it's better to have problems of higher levels than to have problems in lower levels. Remember how in level 3 everybody just kills each other. And at level 4, the nations are organizing better to kill each other between the nations. And level 5, they have trade wars. So it's better to have a trade war with China or whatever, that you actually have an actual war with China or whatever. So that's how problems of higher levels of thinking are. It's better to have problems here than problems there. Yeah. And speed running through the slides so that you remember what we had. And we stopped at the principle 3 of data feminism. That's when we discussed that we could use different modalities to understand the data. And it doesn't have to be just the numbers, bare numbers in a simple bar chart like this one, but we can design data visualization that would elevate emotions and recognize people as feeling creatures that have other organs and not only the brain. Yeah. Although it's pretty cool to have a brain, but it's also nice to have other parts. So then we said that a reason versus emotion is a false dichotomy and rhetoric versus truth is a false dichotomy. I would like to expand now on this second statement. What is rhetoric versus truth? Here I have two charts, and both of them are true. They show the exact same data, exact same line graph as you can see, but neither of them is neutral. So this chart shows unemployment rate during the Obama presidency. Remember Barack Obama? That guy? So he was a president for 8 years, and during his presidency, the unemployment rate decreased like so. And here's a democratic media outlet that is showing you a blue arrow, and look, Friday's drop was larger than expected. The unemployment decreases during Obama presidency. That's a good thing for Obama. And then here's the Republican news outlet that shows you a red kind of line with 8% unemployment, and during the Obama presidency, the unemployment always stayed above that line. So Obama bad. Obama good, Obama bad. So this is the two different views on the situations. So neither of them is neutral, but both are based on the same underlying data that produced the line graph for you. You see, it's a bit tricky. So constraints of truth leave a very wide space for interpretations and editorial choices. Here is another example. The example here is that we have trouble in our data visualization to show uncertainty. And remember that we discussed this visualization before, which shows the prediction of a popular vote between Trump and Clinton as they were fighting for the elections. So in the beginning of the night, when the election results were coming in, this arrow was wildly jumping with large uncertainty between the two. And then as it was narrowing down for a popular vote, it was converging to Clinton being here. So people who've seen this, they were complaining on Twitter, oh, this makes me so anxious. This is so hard to see this. But this was rather the result of their fear of the outcome of the elections and not the data visualization. The data visualization here correctly identified the uncertainty and correctly communicated that uncertainty to the people who were viewing this. And that is why it created the discomfort. So it was deliberate. So make it jitter, make it blurry, make it messy, and create discomfort by breaking the clean view. Otherwise, your data visualization, it looks very precise, as it's here. It looks precise, it looks machined. It looks like this is the truth in pixels, and this is exactly the unemployment that was happening at each point. But how certain is that data, and how certain can you be in the data that you've collected? Maybe there's like some uncertainty margin here, yeah, in the measurements. Here is an example of the hurricane visualization. Here is a path of the hurricane in red, or estimation of the path, yeah? And here is the interval in gray. Can anyone help me interpret this? How do you interpret the gray interval here? And you're all smart, yeah? So you maybe give me the correct answer that the designers think it should show. Yeah, Mayuka?
It's the largest possible range of where the edge of the typhoon could be.
Or the center of the typhoon could be. That was the idea. Remember, the designer has the designer model in their head, and the user has the user model in their head, and they communicate through system image only. So this is the system image. The designer's model was such that we don't know exact path of the hurricane where it can travel. But we show you the possible range of such path, and this is like the center can go here, but the center can also go here, and if you're like on the other coast of Florida, the center can also go over where you live. Yeah. However, this chart is usually designed like that, and then people see it and people think that, oh, this is like the estimated path, the red one, and that's the one that will truly happen. And then the gray is like where the hurricane, where the area will be affected by the hurricane. So the more, like the further away you are from it, the better you are. So if you are on that coast of Florida and you interpret this chart as like you won't be affected so much because you're on the edge of the gray area, and then what happens is that the path changes here, and then the hurricane travels to the other coast of Florida, then you're more screwed than you would otherwise be. So that's like, it could affect your decisions to evacuate or not even. See, it would be better to show like a messy kind of like haywire of different hurricane paths that are that the model gives you, could be produced by this model, and they will be like this, and then that would give you a better interpretation of what this chart was supposed to show, or a better system image. Yeah, so confidence intervals don't work, people just ignore them. And here is another example from the recent election in 2024. Here is the polling results with the Republicans and Democrats here. You see that Democrats are ahead, which is not what happened. So in this view, on the left side, you would see how Democrats are ahead and Republicans are behind, and both lines are fully known, and these are polling results that people measured, and they claim them to be as objective as they look like. But it would rather be displayed like this. So there's blue range, and we don't know, it's somewhere inside. But and then there's a red range, a Republican range, and then we also don't know, it's somewhere inside here. See how much overlap there is with the election outcomes. And it could well be that the Republican comes in front, that's what happened, than the Democrats, but this chart leaves the possibility of that happening. That chart doesn't leave the possibility of that happening. So a lossy kind of alchemy by Geert Thorp is exactly about this. You show a chart and it loses a lot of context. It loses a lot of information on how data was produced, created, and transferred to your screens. And then if you just left with a clean view, you don't have all that information that came with it. Yeah, so that's that. The next chart is a bit disturbing because it's about slavery. But let's look at this one now. So in 1823, the people who wanted to abolish slavery trade, they've come up with this chart, and they've depicted the slaves here in these cargo ships as cargo, and they've made it so precise. See how finely detailed that chart looks like. It's also the scale here in feet, and there's all these like parts of the ship that are annotated, so it looks as precise as the architectural drawing of a ship. And then yet you have the people here, and can I zoom in? Yeah, look, they've chained together, and they are placed in a very tight space, compressed, like none of them have any space to move. And there's also a side view here. From the side view, you see how tight they're sitting and laying here. So they are transported as cargo, and this visualization makes that point very clear. So this chart helped the abolitionists to win the case and convey their argument. Look, these are people, and we are transporting them as cargo. We should not do that. However, there is another chart here in Statista. A transatlantic slave trade uprooted millions. So clearly, from the title, this chart also makes an argument against slavery trade. And it shows this like a Minard Sankey kind of on the map visual structure. And this chart only shows you the numbers and thickness of the lines. So this is very abstract and disconnected from the actual reality where the data comes from. And that chart retains that connection to where the data comes from and makes a properly emotional argument. So again, which one is better, which one is worse? I would say that the chart is better, that one, black and white, that it uses multiple modalities of understanding. Like you're not just brain, you have a heart as well. So it uses the heart and the brain together to make an argument. And I think that is the superior approach. And using multiple modalities together, integrating them, is what takes us to level 7 harmonize. That's one of the tricks to get to that place. Okay, good. Principle number 4 from data feminism: rethink binaries and hierarchies. So here we would challenge systems of counting and classification that perpetuate oppression. Here I need to mention that what gets counted really counts. You know how you measure economy? You measure is your GDP growing and is the unemployment decreasing? So you have these very basic measurements. So whatever you do in the economy, it would be optimized towards growth of the GDP and decreasing of the unemployment. Which means that we can over-optimize or wrongly optimize these things. If you're just growing your GDP and you are in the capitalist economy, that would mean that you just have to produce a lot of junk, and then your economy grows not because you learn to produce more things, but because you learn to consume more things, right? So our modern economies, they don't rely so much on labor and production. Like if you're looking for a job, it's maybe hard to find a job nowadays because there's not so many jobs needed anymore. You don't need to produce all the things that are made now by robots and Amazon factory, fully automated. It sends our drones to the nature and cuts the trees and whatever it does, like all very, very advanced machinery, like one operator can do that. And then it creates products and then sends you drones that would deliver the junk to you, to your doorstep. And here, the globalization of that system makes labor not really needed so much. It makes consumption needed much more than labor. So if you hear the ideas that, oh, we should go for like 4 days work week nowadays, instead of like 5 days work week, that is because labor is not so much needed as the consumption, so you have 1 more day to consume instead of 1 more day to produce. a different view on a 4 days work week, I think. Yeah. So what if you count different criteria? What if you count something like the density of local economic connections? What if you count things like a percentage of your consumption of of local produce, such as food, vegetables, meat that is locally produced rather than globally delivered, and we optimize for that, and then that economy maybe would be more beneficial for your participation in labor and your mental state and your communities, yeah, instead of turning everything into like a suburbia with goods delivered by drones from Amazon. Yeah, so this is just some thoughts of economy that has passed that stage. So what's next? How do we build economy for level 7? I don't know, but these are some ideas of thinking into that direction. More things from the slides. How many genders are there? Do you know? I know this is like a contested opinion these days. Is it 2? No one dares to answer. Is it 3? Is it more? Is it however many, like one per each? We have 8 billion genders. So usually in our data statistics, there's 3 genders. I can give you that hint. Do you know what these are?
Male, female.
And no data. These are the 3 genders we have. 1, 2, 3. Male, female, no data. There was a time when Facebook, and you would register on Facebook, you would have to tell it if you're male or female. And then the level 6 people come in and like, what about trans people? Let's add them as well. And they've added like other or like a bunch more genders. And then more level 6 people come in and they say, oh, this is still not enough. And then Facebook had at some point had like 50 options for gender selection when you register there. And then they've removed that and they just give you like a blank box where you type whatever you want. So they've come eventually to a blank box of a gender selection. However, it then has to sell you to advertisers. And advertisers, they only have a meaningful way to classify the selling of their junk to male or female. So that in that way, Facebook would use machine learning to still classify you into male or female in order to sell your data to whatever advertisers want to sell want to sell you junk. So of course it does that. So then the question comes like, okay, what data structure do you have to build in your database, in your data system, in order to support the data that would be flowing into it? And then you have all these choices. What type of field should I select for gender? Should the Boolean be enough, like true or false? Yeah? Or maybe like a enumerated digit codes, 1, 2, 3. Or maybe people can type whatever they want, and then people make all sorts of typing mistakes, like you have male like M-A-L-E and you have M-A-L, because they like mistype or whatever. Then you have the explosion of different options of data, or how do you call them? You have data points that don't have that are not consistent in your data set because people just type things wrong on the keyboard. Yeah. Another example here. You have a data system about a prison, and you have a field if a person is incarcerated and should be in prison or not. And that could be like a Boolean, true or false. Yeah, that would control the door if it's opening or closing for a prisoner. But what if there's all these edge cases that are possible? What if the prisoner ran away? So he should be incarcerated, but not now, because now he ran away. What about if a person is accused but not convicted, so has to sit somewhere to wait the trial and for that to happen. So is that like an intermediary incarcerated state, or if it's not happened yet? Yeah. What if a person was being acquitted, or like what do you say when the like charges are dropped? Yeah. Acquitted. Yeah. But haven't been freed yet from the prison. So what should the value be in that data field? So here's all these edge cases. And the argument here is that our life just consists of a bunch of edge cases. And then our data systems, they are by necessity reductionistic. So then we would have to package our life into our data system, and then all the weird people or people who are outliers, all the edge cases, they're like cut away from our data system. They remain outside. So, and then they don't fit in that. So that's the perpetuating oppression to the minoritized groups that we have here. Yeah. So be careful about that. This is a level 6 thinking. We're very high. It's not like I am critical of level 6, of course. I am critical of even level 7. But these are, remember, it's better to have higher level problems than lower level problems. Here is a funny example. If you are a lady, or you sometimes use lady clothes, then you know a struggle of having too small pockets, because your pockets don't fit anything inside them. So here is a data project that analyzed 80 pairs of blue jeans. And it's plotted these pockets, how they were measured between men and women. You see how in the data structure, this one is clearly smaller than that one. Again, it is more convincing when you actually show the data points, you actually show the data. See how instead of 2 bars with uncertainty intervals, or like whatever, like a spread or statistical, we can have like a distribution of volume of pockets, yeah? But instead of that, we just show pockets. So that is a trick to have your data more convincing of actually showing the data points as they come into your measurement system. Here's the women pockets, here's the men pockets, and we align them like this, and we measure them. This is how they look like. And then they've taken the average, see how nicely that's done, and then they try to fit multiple items in these pockets. Here's the iPhone X, here's a Samsung, here is a Google Pixel, and it doesn't fit here. Our phone's just like getting bigger for some reason. I don't know why. I found this one. This is like the latest, or like last surviving small flagship from all the phones. This is Asus. And here it actually fits in my hand. That's so nice. But otherwise, phones just keep getting bigger, and then they don't fit in these pockets at all. Here's a wallet, here's a pen, here's a hand. Woman's hand, male hand. Cool. Yeah, this is a nice project that highlights this difference that happens in the fashion design or in jeans design. Maybe the reason is that if you have like pockets that don't fit anything in them, then your ass looks nicer. If you can't fit anything in your pocket, but you also need some kind of functionality. So maybe you can have like no pockets here, so that the ass looks nicer, yeah. But you have like larger pockets there, and that's like cooler. Then you have your design that solves both problems. Again, binaries here can be questions. Here is a binary about disabilities. So we are used to this thinking pattern that a disability is something that is permanent. Yeah. So when we design a city and we want to have accessible infrastructure in the city, which is good, yes. So we should have that. So we're thinking of little like ramps and road crossings that are raised above the ground, because this is for wheelchair people. It makes them easier to like navigate with the wheelchair in the city. However, when you start thinking of other use cases and other people, the disability of having to use a wheelchair could be permanent, could be situational, like you have to a temporary injury that now you have to use a wheelchair. Or it can be helping people with strollers. Like if you have a baby, you can use your stroller, and then it's easier to use infrastructure in the city that doesn't have these steps that you need to climb with a stroller. But then consider yourself with a heavy suitcase, and then you go to the airport. And then it's much easier to use a city that is optimized for wheelchair users, but maybe you don't give a damn about wheelchair users, but you still benefit from the infrastructure that it's designed in a more accessible way, because now you have a heavy suitcase. Yeah, here are some other examples of that. One arm is a permanent injury, but if I have ride my mountain bike and I injure my hand, then I have to use my keyboard with one hand. This is a temporary disability. But if I have a child in the hand and then I do that, this is a situational disability. Same with the eyes, like you can be blind, you can have an eye infection or injury, and you could be like a distracted driver. So a distracted driver, again, expands your design for maybe like you have voice navigation in your software. And that's not only for blind people, it's also for drivers that don't want to look at the screen all the time, as they should. Okay, so embracing pluralism, here, wait, we're done. We've done with principle number 4, now we go to principle number 5, embrace pluralism. So here the argument goes that the data is extracted usually from communities and people on the ground who then have no say in how this data is analyzed, classified, and used later. So this is usually when our local, indigenous, and experiential ways of knowing are getting lost in the data. And then that data just imposes a classification onto the people it was collected from without even asking them if it's appropriate or not. So here, I'll get to some examples, but here first, the principle is to listen to many voices on each step of data process, such as collection, cleaning of data. Data is messy, and here's how we think usually. We think that the data has an underlying correct order, and we come up with these classification boxes, and we try to classify and feed everything neatly into our classification boxes. And if we are so far disconnected from where the data comes from the people it comes from, then we impose our own classification onto them, and that is incorrect. So that's not good. Here it says the principle is no datafication without representation. So the authors of data feminism, they've introduced this idea of strangers in the data set. And the idea is that, you know how you have a village, and in the village everyone knows each other, so people can communicate and resolve disputes and recognize each other in a better way than in a town or a city. Then it grows to a town, and people start having strangers on the streets, and crime can increase because now people don't know you, so you can get away with crime. And then it goes to a city, and the city is even more. People are strangers to each other. People don't even know the neighbors in the city normally. So then everybody is just disconnected and everybody doesn't care about each other. In that way, this can also happen in the data. So the data project grows, and then the analytics department moves away from the place where the data was collected, and then the voices of those who the data was collected from, they get ignored, or they not get listened. At some point you have a need to combine your data with other data sets, and that's a problem again because different data sets use different classification right? So then people who you collected the data from, they maybe disagree of how you classify them. What if I include Taiwan in China? Yeah, because that's what Chinese government wants me to do. But then people in Taiwan, they not happy with that because they want them to be a separate country. Yeah, the same way. Even if I go to this Gapminder tools, yeah, the classical bubble chart I have. See, I divide every country in 4 regions, and this is a very reductionistic model of regions that can happen on the planet. Like here, I assign Russia to Europe, and then other Europeans, like Ukrainians, they are like super not happy with that. Like, well, no, Russian should not be Europe. It's like remnants of Mongol Empire, so it should be like part of Asia instead. And then Asians are like, yeah, like why? In the same way, Turkey wants to be, or it wanted to be European during Ataturk times because he wanted everything modernized and following European mentality of like how government should work. And now they have a more kind of isolationist leader, Erdogan, who is like, no, Turkey should be on its own. It's part of a different continent. We don't want to have too much to do with Europe, and we don't want to have this the same European institutions. I can just be the autocratic leader of Turkey. So then, should it be red here or should it be yellow? And then it's all these questions. Yeah, see, it's tricky. Should I have maybe South America in different color than North America? And then if I add more of them categories, I get more true to the actual, data on the ground. Like I can bundle Sweden, Denmark, and Norway together, and I think no one would mind. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we are kind of okay neighbors with each other, even though we make fun of each other. But this is okay. But there's like some other situations when this is less okay. Yeah, Taiwan and China, whatever. And then if I go back in the past, like here I have. So I was born in 1989. Hey, hit that year. So I was born in the Soviet Union, but this country is not here anymore. We just have Russia here and Ukraine and Kazakhstan and all the other countries. So the data here, the life expectancy in particular, is it for Russia or is it for Soviet Union? Yeah. So then you get 2 data sets. And one of them is normalized to the country borders that we have at the moment. For like populations of Russia, population of Ukraine separately, and Kazakhstan separately, and the other data set, it has Soviet Union with all the populations combined in one data point. Same for Germany. So this is like if I go even back in time, I just have Germany here, but it wasn't one country, so it was divided in 2 countries after the Second World War because they lost, and the Allies divided them between West Germany and East Germany. So all the data usually goes and is expressed in separate East Germany, West Germany, but I have all these data sets. I have CO2 emissions, I have child mortality, I have communication media like representative government index, number of journalists killed, number of journalists imprisoned. So I want to have that data historically available since way back into the King's time in 1800s. I want to have all these data available across multiple years and harmonized together. And the way I do that harmonization is sometimes not okay with the people who are part of being classified. Yeah. So being mindful of that is good. Otherwise, you do what's called epistemic violence. This is how you impose your ways of thinking onto the people who have different ways of thinking. Like you are like in the old times, you have the expedition to learn about the tribes, and you're from Europe, so you're like white people going to learn about the tribes, and then you hire people there who are like carry all your junk, and they have to carry your grand piano because you're like a fancy European that goes to travel and explore the tribes of like native tribes in Africa. Yeah, so yeah, don't make them carry the piano. Okay, so in data science, we normally talk about ourselves, especially tech bros do that, as like unicorns and code ninjas and data wizards. So this mentality is that you would usually work alone and remotely, and then you come into the project, you do like what Ninja does, you like, yeah, and you like slice and dice the data set and you do all these data transformations as you think you are correct, but you're so disconnected and you're so distant from where the data is collected from, then all of these kind of colonial effects and mindset, these are happening. So us as data scientists, we usually are valued for only our technical expertise and not for the ability to listen and to be careful with the data about people. Yeah, so the ways to solve it, as proposed in data feminism, is to introduce transparency instead of objectivity in your data projects. So by introducing transparency, you would communicate along with your data outcomes who was on the team, yeah? What were the points of tensions and disagreement? When did the data team talk to domain experts or to local communities where they get the data from? So what institutions were involved and what funding was used for the data? So as you construct your data science project, you have a story of how that project come to be, how that visualization was constructed, how the data was collected, how it was sampled, how often it was sampled, what were the methods, how data was collected. So tell that story. This is the only way now to do the objectivity. When level 6 tells you that nothing is truly objective, the way to do that is to be transparent of how you do your data analysis. And then you remove a lot of blame from yourself, or like potential blame from yourself, because look, it's all written. I write it like explicitly in how I construct that data set and how I do my chart and everything else. Yeah, so tell that story. Data for good is usually used by initiatives and non-profits who would like to use their data science for improving the world, quote unquote, and make social impact and make a good change in the world. However, that term data for good is underdefined, as the book Data Feminism criticizes it. So why is it underdefined? Because we don't say whose good are we talking about, and what are the terms, and who maintains the databases and the charts after we leave the community, who pays for cloud storage, and so on. So this is like a common problem, because you have skills, right? And you make a data project, and then you leave that project. So you move on to with other things in life. You move to other projects, and then you know how software, if you leave it alone, it doesn't just function indefinitely. So the software breaks over time, like Google Chrome updates, and now it doesn't use the same technologies anymore, so it doesn't work. Maybe you remember how Flash was removed from all the browsers. So then all the projects that did like games and little like cartoons and videos and interactive websites that used Flash, they magically just stopped working. So if you transferred your project to whatever people it is concerned with, do they have skills to maintain that project, or what happens if they have to update their data? So these all the questions, they need answers, and usually the answer is just whatever. Usually the answer is just the project is finished and then it's maybe maintained for a year or two and then it's lost. So then even if your project is has a good impact on the people you're getting the data from and you're working with, you don't maintain it forever, and then they don't have skills maybe to maintain that project forever. So then how would you empower them who has the data to keep it working, instead of like when you turn the lights off on your server, then they're screwed and they can't use their device or app or anything else. Yeah, everything connects to a cloud now, and that's a problem. That's a problem that makes a very disadvantaged situation for those who use apps that need to connect to a cloud. Yeah, like I like my PlayStation game. Yeah, and I bought my PlayStation game, so I wanted to keep working. But I can never be sure, because to be able to work, it needs to connect to like PlayStation Network and the cloud and confirm that I have my whatever user account and I really bought that game and it's really like supposed to work on my computer. But then that server goes down, or a country becomes fascist, and then it gets sanctions, and then PlayStation Store goes away from the country, and then it cannot do that. Now I don't have my game anymore. This app that I use this. Where is it? Somewhere here. I use this app to navigate my files and folders. Which is like really nice. I can use my keyboard to navigate files. I can copy them, move them, and so on. But this is also an app that I paid for, and in order to start, it has to connect to the internet, and then it checks my license, and then oh yeah, okay, you're good, you can use the app. But what if I'm on an airplane? So I just open my computer, I don't have connection. The app like, sorry, nope. Because it doesn't have ways to check the license. So that's why you should always pirate your software. That's the unexpected conclusion you would get from here. Yeah, buy your software and then also pirate it so that you have access to it that doesn't depend on the cloud. And when you make software, provide ways for users to use your software when your support is over. Yeah, support time is over. There is a guide by Louis Rossmann. Does anyone know Louis Rossmann? Okay, it's useful if you know that guy. And he has a guide for sovereign computing. It's like a 300 pages PDF, and it's good to have that offline somewhere, which teaches you how to be independent when using your software and hardware, and how to like maybe choose a printer that doesn't refuse to print or scan when you're out of yellow ink and you only need to print black and white. Yeah, you know, this is super oppressive. I'm so oppressed when I try to use a scanner, but the printer, which is like the same part of scanner, is out of yellow ink and says, well, you should refill your yellow ink before you could use the scanner. Yes. What they propose in data feminism is to have leadership by members of minoritized groups working in the community, money and resources managed by members of minoritized groups, data owned and governed by the community. I don't know how this is even possible, because minoritized groups, by definition, have no money. That's why they are minoritized. Yeah. So how is like some rich white guy gave money to a good cause, and now someone else is supposed to manage it. And we hope that someone else is managing the money in good spirit, instead of just like buying themselves houses and gold chains, you know, and all that. Yes, so data scientists should be not rock stars and wizards, but rather facilitators and guides. and data education and knowledge transfer to should be part of the project design. And we've built also social infrastructure so that the data can run offline, and maybe we have Raspberry Pis. I totally forgot about that. This is a part of mentality of independent computing. So you make it work for a Raspberry Pi, and you just give them the computer, the server that they can then. It costs like $50, you know. It's cheap, Raspberry Pi, and then can run their project on there in their community without being in need to use the cloud or whatever. So yeah, we definitely learned how to do independent computing. This is good. This is good. Principle number 6: consider context. Here, we recognize again that data is not neutral or objective. Remember how we have just chemistry on level 5, and level 6 comes in, and then it says like, well, you measure temperature by using your measurement system and your tools which have imperfections, and this is just a temperature record, it's not the actual temperature that you've measured. So it comes with all these nuances, and eventually it comes around and says, it is also a product of your social inequalities, so your temperature is racist, yeah? So when this level goes crazy, you get the patriarchal math, and it says that if you wake up early in the morning, this is a racist practice. But it's useful to recognize these limitations, but it's also, this level is the one that gives you the tools to think in that direction, so that's good. And the thinking in that direction is what can enable you to preserve the context of your data collection and data transformation. So the data without context is just zombie data. It's just numbers without any grounding in the reality that where they come from. So in the design, we usually say something like content is king, so, which means that you decorate only like as much as needed for the content, but the content should be the most prominent in your whatever website chart, whatever you're trying to show. So content is king, but then this data feminism principle adds that context is the queen. So keep the context always available and ready for those who are willing to dive in and understand it as well. Usually people say that in order to scale up the project, you need to lose some context necessarily, but this is also a false dichotomy, and there's ways to retain the context even after you scale the project. Cool. Here I have an example of a data system called GDELT that extracts data about kidnappings from news articles, and then it shows it as objective truth. It's a kidnapping in Nigeria. However, instead of saying that there was like 649 kidnappings in Nigeria in 4 months, what it really says is that it counted the events in the news sources, and they sum up to 649. You see how that's different? Because different news sources can report on the same event, and that's how you double count them, and they don't have that context in the chart or in the data system. So this is the result when some tech pros come into the data and they make some analysis, and they say, okay, we made the data analysis, this is our truth that we've concluded is happening, but this is wrong because context was ignored. The authors of the book Data Feminism, they propose a scientific term, big dick data. And what does that mean? That means that, data projects that are characterized by patriarchal, masculinist, totalitizing fantasies of world domination as enacted through data capture and analysis. So they made that definition. So big tech data projects are arrogantly grandiose. They ignore context, they fetishize size, they inflate technical scientific capabilities. So this is like when you lose context and your tech bros, they come into your social security system and they'll be like, hey, let's remove social security for everyone who is 150 years old in our social security. Did you see that? Did you see the news?
No, not that.
No, it's Elon Musk with his team.
Yeah.
They look at the social security data, and they found like a lot of people who are 150 years old who get social security benefits, and they're like, wasteful spending. Let's cut that. Turns out, if they would consider the context of the social security database, that it was made in COBOL, the ancient programming language. And COBOL doesn't have date as a data type. So instead of date, it just uses like a number from whatever happened, that there's some kind of epoch. So the COBOL doesn't have the field, or it doesn't have also the missing data or null for it. So they just encoded birthday as a number, and then 0 is there in place for missing values. But 0 also means some point in time that in COBOL ends up being 150 years ago, and that's how people who are missing the birthday in the data system, they look like they're 150 years old. Yeah? And then Elon Musk like, hey, let's remove all of them. And then there's a whole discussion on Twitter that's going on right now. Sorry, X. X? I still call it Twitter. A whole discussion with like COBOL specialists that are, this is like a legit thing that happens in COBOL-based data systems with the actual people whose birthday is missing there. It's a partial giveaway of one of the quiz questions for the next quiz, data transformations. So look forward for that one. Yes, zombie data, I already mentioned. This is when you ignore the context. Especially that happens when the government thinks it's trendy and fashionable to do something that we call open data. So they jump on the hype train of open data, and they just publish some numbers in spreadsheets or PDFs or whatever, and then you come and download them, and you don't even know how to use these numbers because you have no instructions of how they were collected or how they were classified, analyzed, and how you're supposed to use them, and like what can you use, what can you not use. I don't know, data about coronavirus that and remember all the governments at that point, they were publishing open data about coronavirus. And your weekly data, your weekly corona data chart would look like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday again. So what was happening is that hospital is closed here, and then, or it's open, but the data department is closed. And then they log all the cases from the weekend of people having coronavirus, and they log them here on Monday. And then you have Monday spikes, and then you download that data, you see Monday spikes. Well, just sucks to live on Monday, right? You just get more coronavirus on Monday than on weekends. We just, go out on weekends instead of Mondays. Yeah. That's an example of zombie data that doesn't explain why this happens, and you have no idea of it. And finally, principle number 7 is to make labor visible. This is an example from GitHub, which has a history of commits. So here, my colleague works a little bit, and then we make like a feature branch. So my colleague worked on that feature, then we merge, and so on. So this is like really helpful for, well, if you do group projects, it's nice for me to go and see the commits and see who did what, so I can give you grades correctly. Sometimes I have like groups with, like there's a bunch of bros in the group, and there's like a one shy girl in the group, and it turns out that she does all the work because she has a technical brain, and they are just more visible because they're presenting it. And then I can't give her like proper credit unless I see that the work was actually done by her. So this would making work visible, and this is like when it was done in the project and like number of commits and lines removed, lines added, and so on. This allows me to see the amount of work that she's put in her group project. So also like be mindful about that, especially for like ladies who work in the teams full of bros. This can be beneficial. Yeah, having that history. In your group projects, I would at least request you to have some kind of like a indication, like credits after a movie. So a movie ended, and then you say, oh, this participant worked on this and this and this, and this participant worked on that and that and that, and this one made data transformations, and this one made a TikTok demonstration of our project, and so on. Yeah. So this is how we make labor visible. All right, we have now covered the principles from the book Data Feminism. There were just 7 principles there. And I've tried roughly map it to the levels of thinking and show you how these principles could take us up the levels. It is mostly anchored in level 6, and as I mentioned before, it has distortions, but at the same time it's a pretty high level of thinking, and it's good that we are there, and it's good to go further. So how to go further is the question, to which I don't have a clear answer. I just had some of the ideas that I shared with you, and hope it landed well, and hope you find that lecture useful. Some of the summaries though. So let's go to some action items. So usually you have like what people think rationality is about, and you see like a person here is torn between a heart and the brain. But what actually rationality is about is having both heart and a brain pulling a person on a skateboard. So be awesome like that. Yeah? Reimagine our relationship with data as citizens rather than subjects. Remember who datas who, like I data you, you data me, we all data together. So consider who dating you, and you can data them instead. Yeah? Be more active, take an active participation in data about you and about your communities. Integrate the data feminism principles into the pursuit of truth. So this balance between these two different styles of thinking, level 6 and level 5, or maybe we should call them layers, like layer 6, layer 5, because each of them includes the previous ones as well. If we integrate them, we may actually start getting to level 7. Yeah, we need both. Learn to apply 10 factfulness rules of thumb. Read this book, highly recommend just having this reference again for you. Study the levels and practice the higher ways of thinking. As I said, we are constantly using all the levels we have access to. Getting access to higher levels is specific for your domains of expertise. Like you learn something about neuroscience, or you learn something about material like stress and how the bridge works and so on. And then you're like so nuanced, and you know like all these like intricacies of how the bridge works or how neuroscience works, that you get there in your domain, but try to get there also in other domains. And then you collect a bunch of domains, then of like you collect a bunch of domains here, then you go, whoa, there's like a whole meta transformation into level 6. Then you collect a bunch of horizontal development, and then you get another vertical step, and so on. Yeah, and there's, as I remind you, there's exercises online, and some of them are paid, some of them are free, but it's usually one of them that is free is just sit with your thoughts, maybe write something down, so do some writing, maybe do some journaling, do some like analysis where your thoughts coming from, and where does these thoughts that cause these thoughts coming from, and like try to dig into the connections of your thoughts. That's how you can just do it for free. Look for a third win. Remember, I win, you win, someone else wins, like a society or an ecosystem. Look for elegance maxed solutions. Today everything is maxed, yeah? You know that word. So elegance maxed, that's the term I propose that you have. Integrate different styles of thinking. Create and spread level 7 memes. So this is how cultures evolve. Cultures evolve by creating and spreading memes. A meme is the atomic part of a culture. So we should recognize how to make level 7 memes and spread them. I have an example here. So on this meme, a stupid person says magic is real, and then the average person says magic is a trick. And then like a really smart guy is like reality is a trick. So this is levels 2, then up to 5, 2, 5, and 6. These three levels are used here. But then I added level 7, reality is magic, and I show this fractal visualization and the chill guy there who is like, what we actually have is the real magic here. Level 7 memes. Okay, at this point we are done with the lecture, and I just go to some announcements about what comes next in the class. So I don't need this anymore.